Okay, I thought it was about time I shot a video for this game of Empires of Apocalypse, Pearl Harbor, um, as I'm about to start my third turn. Um, I'm also experimenting with putting the camera on a tripod, so rather than sort of having it handheld, so we'll see how it goes. So you can see what's set up is we are in 1939. We started in January, so we're just entering March, and we've had 2 months of play. So essentially, what was set up was some Americans in the Philippines, some Dutch forces scattered, British Empire forces in Australia and here in Singapore, some French in French Indochina, some British in Hong Kong there, and then you can just about see, I've laid them off the map here because that would be a huge stack here in Hawaii. There's some American destroyers in Samoa, and then there's more forces. I think you can't quite see that, but they're just here. There's quite a few stacks of American naval transports and boats, but not many infantry at all yet for America. That's the kind of setup. You're given setup instructions in the scenario, but very nicely laid out, easy to follow. I found it necessary for my aid to take these from another game and mark where factories are, because factories are very important for production, and this is an aid memoir for me, although I do have a chart here with these details listed, but it's useful for me in the sense that the red ones are Japanese factories. So this is a Japanese factory. It's actually a Manchurian factory, but it's been taken over by the Japanese. The green factories are Chinese factories, and so I can see potential objectives for the Japanese forces very easily. Otherwise they get lost beneath the counters. Then likewise the red discs from another game are marking resource hexes, and the yellow discs are marking oil resources. Oil resources are very valuable because essentially they're worth, in the terms of supply, which you need for every attack, and to keep units in general. Just for attack. Oil resources are worth 3 supply points. Regular resources are only worth 1. Everything has to be processed through factories though as well before the resources have any actual real value. So I've marked those as interesting objectives for the Japanese. Obviously this is where they want to go to get the oil, but at the moment they're embroiled in the war in China. They haven't sort of got any more expansionist than that yet. I also made up some, I don't know if you can see, I also made up some little chits to mark. This is to mark the weather. I'm trying to get this to focus. Yeah, I keep moving so it doesn't focus. So that's, for me, marks MS for monsoon, and 2 is the, what is that? I've forgotten now. I was playing this just last night, but anyway, I can't remember. But anyway, the point is that you have, I don't know if you can see, there's these jagged sort of lines, broad lines. They mark an Arctic weather zone, temperate weather zone, subtropic weather zone, north monsoon, south monsoon, and then we go to subtropic weather zone again. So they can all potentially have a different weather zone. At the moment, in March 1939, we have winter in the Arctic, rain in the temperate. It's clear in both the subtropic and north monsoon, and there's full-on monsoons in the south monsoon. There's also potentially blizzard weather and mud weather, and they all have specific effects. For example, rain will affect naval bombardments and air attacks, but they don't affect movement and ground attacks. But of course, air attacks supporting ground attacks are affected, and so forth. Like blizzard affects practically everything, slows movement right down. Mud slows movement more than doesn't affect the air and naval bombardment so much. So you have that variety, and again, aid memoir for me, that's useful, or otherwise you have to keep checking it on a chart. What else do we have? Yes, we have some actual supply dumps, as it were. So this is a supply dump worth 3 supply points, which the Japanese have got stored in Truk. They also have some in Japan itself, some in Manchuria, and they spent some more that was in Manchuria. So that is apart from their national pool. Over there, up the top here, this is a sheet marking national pools. You can't see the details, but you have replacements, which essentially sort of personnel and all the things they need, the boots and the weapons and vehicles. Then you have material, which is what you need to build big things like fortresses and battleships, and then supply. And so those are like national pools which are available anywhere where your national supply reaches. But apart from that, you can store supply dumps, so that can give local supply to places that are cut off from the national supply. What else, just to show you, just to mention, is this chart here lists the research. So I'll talk about that later in a minute. Here's the game turn chart, and it also places reinforcements. So each square you see is a month, and then there's some squares at the bottom for repaired airs, repaired ships, and etc. But again, I'll go into detail to that later. Just to mention, somebody mentioned it would be a good idea to do instructional videos for this game and this series, because it could do with sort of some more exposure and more people picking it up. That's not what I'm intending to do right now. Now I'm just doing my sort of game commentary, but I have taken that suggestion on board, and I will see what I can do with it as and when it becomes possible to do anything with it. I like the idea, and I have to play some of this more so I get back into the system before I can really contemplate that. What else? Yeah, I've got some red things here which just indicate that the US cannot reinforce these areas until they take certain options. But I'll go into that more. We've got to put the US political phase chart. So as normal in the World War II grand strategic games, the US is out of the war, and if various things happen, it sort of raises their war readiness level, so forth. And I'll talk about that later, and also the diplomacy when we get to it in the appropriate phase of the turn. So that's a sort of broad overview. Like I said, it's been we've had 2 months, and we've had 2 unit losses. That's complete units removed from the map. Apart from that, units lose strength points. So for example, I know this isn't going to focus well without me holding it steady, but no, it's not going to focus. I need some way to brace myself, don't I? So you see he's got 4 movement down on the bottom left, and then he's got 5 strength combat attack and 4 defense strength. Now this unit has taken some hits from combats with the Chinese, so he's taken 1 hit, which means his movement, I can't remember if his movement's affected, I'll have to check that, but I don't think so, but his combat strength are reduced by 1. But apart from that, we've only have 2 complete unit losses. Now at this point in the game, that is quite important, because Japan and China are at limited war. As I mentioned in the introduction, you have essentially, this is the communist Chinese, and this is the nationalist Chinese. So they have sort of like a shaky truce at the moment. They can both fight the Japanese and they don't fight each other, but they cannot be within like a 1 hex of each other and so forth. So essentially I've actually moved almost all of the Japanese infantry into Japanese occupied China, and some of them have actually invaded China, the rest of China. There's some Russians, these are Russian units up here that you can't quite see. So there's some border guards, there's some Manchurian units allied to the Japanese here, a couple of Japanese units just kind of to hold the borders just in case of any surprises from the Soviets. But apart from that, all the Japanese infantry raised at the moment practically are in China, ready for the attack. And you can see there's quite a lot of units, there's large stacks here, but some of these stacks, like this one, is a stack of transports, destroyers and carriers and their complements. So they're there to provide air attacks and so forth to the land forces. But there's also like a stack of 3 land units here. So the Japanese have got full force in China, but the limited war in this game is simulated by JCP points. So that's Japanese Chinese points. And oh, we've gone completely out of focus. I'm going to have to watch that, aren't I? What that means, I'm recording it up here. So the Japanese have a pool of them. They gain 2 each month, and the Chinese gain 2 each month. One for the communists, one for the nationalists, and they are spent. That every unit that attacks spends a one of those points, and every infantry unit and every air unit. And okay, I'm going to have to cut this short because it sounds like my son has woken up. I'll press pause and hopefully I can come back to this, or have to edit in another one. Hang on.